So let's get this started in at number 10 with earthworms. Yeah, that's right, thousands of earthworms were seen falling from the sky in Norway, and this was back in 2015. And apparently, this isn't the first time that earthworms have fallen from the sky there. A man named Karsten Ersted discovered that it was raining earthworms while he was skiing. At first he thought that these earthworms came from the ground, but there was over 50 centimeters of snow on the ground, so yeah, that would kind of make it impossible, wouldn't it? Well, he reported that there were thousands of worms falling from the sky, and at first he thought that they were dead. But then he picked them up, and they were still alive. I mean, this is so freaking gross. I would literally go straight down the hill with my skis and never look back. And I guess this might be a fisherman's dream, because that is like unlimited bait, if bait is just falling from the sky. Well, from worms to strange blobs in at number 9. Over in the town of Oakville, Washington, it began to rain in the afternoon. Rain in this area is actually really common, but this rainfall was extremely weird. A strange substance was falling from the sky, and it caused a major concern in the area. Well, these things were the size of a grain of rice. Later on in the afternoon, a ton of the residents became violently ill. They had difficulties breathing, they had vertigo, blurred vision, and extreme nausea. A bunch of cats and dogs who came into contact with the substance became very sick, and they eventually died. One of the residents sent a small sample of the blob to be tested, and the results were shocking. The blob actually contained human white blood cells and 2 types of bacteria. People are saying that it came from an airplane, while others are saying that it came from aliens. Well, that's gotta be the logical answer, right? The aliens part? A cow drops into this list at number 8. Okay, wait a minute, how the heck does a cow fall from the sky? What kind of world are we living in? Well, back in 1997, a Japanese fishing ship sank, and the men were rescued by a Russian patrol boat in the Sea of Japan. When the men were asked what happened to their ship, they said that a cow fell from the sky and sank it. Well, obviously Russians thought that this was fake news, so they arrested them and put them in jail. Well, that's kind of a harsh punishment, don't you think? Because several weeks later, a member of the Russian Air Force told the Japanese authorities that one of their crew members stole a cow for its beef and took it on their plane. The cow was acting up, so they decided to open up the hatch and moo. They just pushed the cow out of the plane. I don't know why they didn't just slaughter the cow first and then bring it onto the plane, like they had a full-on live cow on the plane. I wonder if he had to go through security. And are you allowed to bring beef on the plane? I don't know. Or at least sedate this big guy so he's not problematic. Dead birds fly into this list at number 7. I'm gonna call this Birdageddon. A man from British Columbia, Canada witnessed dozens of birds falling from the sky. He was driving on a busy highway when all of a sudden he saw the birds suddenly hitting the ground around his car. He said that the birds dove face first into the pavement and died instantly. Well, that sounds super traumatizing. No, seriously, someone call Stephen King and tell him that I have an idea for his next book. I want to forget this has ever happened, so you know what, let's move on. Alright, number 6, we have scary meat chunks. Okay, what the heck? Is it too late to go back to the birds? So on March 3rd, 1876, large chunks of a rotting flesh fell from the sky, and this took place in Kentucky. 2 brave men offered to taste the meat to see what animal it came from. I don't know who would offer to taste it. That just sounds so ludicrous to me. And I'm gonna go ahead and say that they're not the sharpest tools in the shed. They don't know what kind of bacteria could be on the meat. Maybe they like having ringworms or salmonella. Anyways, these 2 men tasted the meat. Anyways, the 2 men said the meat tasted like mutton or venison, but a 3rd man said it was bear. Like, for sure. Well, how the hell do you know what bear tastes like? I would stay far away from him. Well, the mysterious meat came from a projectile vulture vomit. Now that is just disgusting, and these men ate it. Sucks to volunteer on that day. Giant metal balls fall into this list at number 5. Giant balls of metal were seen falling from the sky in different parts of the world. Well, that doesn't sound very safe now, does it? People over in Peru found a bunch of huge rocks in a field after they saw this in the sky. Take a look. Viejo! Those rocks are absolutely massive. They could easily wipe out the entire human race if enough of them fell on them. As it turns out, this fireball was actually a Russian space rocket that was re-entering the Earth's atmosphere. Vampire fish swim their way onto this list at number 4. Over in a small Alaskan town, mysterious giant vampire fish started to fall from the sky. These guys were a foot long and they were known as Arctic lampreys. They have 5 rows of sharp teeth and and they were found laying in gardens, streets, and in parking lots. Families were so freaking terrified by these scary looking fish, some of them were even too scared to come out of their homes. Well, you know what, I don't blame them. Take a look at their teeth. I'd lock myself into my house for weeks until the town got rid of them. There's no way in hell you would see me out there with these dead vampire fish. Spiders come crawling onto this list, or should I say come falling onto this list at number 3. Eric Ries was hired to be a videographer for his friend's wedding. As he was driving to the venue, it started to rain spiders. Now I know this is a lot of people's biggest fear. Thousands of them were falling from the sky. So instead of getting the heck out of there, Eric thought it would be a great idea to pull out his camera and film the whole thing. And to be honest, this is probably something that I would do as well. I'm not afraid of spiders, but maybe if there was like 100 of them coming down, maybe I'd be pretty terrified.
Cara, choveu aranha.
Nunca vi uma coisa dessa, cara.
Meu Deus!
But raining spiders isn't actually as strange as it seems. Apparently, the eczemus spider hangs from trees and they create webs that are 65 feet in the air and in trees. They do this to trap insects, but if the wind blows too hard, the spiders can fall off the web, so it looks like that it's raining spiders. Sounds pretty creepy to me. Moving up on this list, number 2, we have people. On September 25th, 1978, a woman was sitting in her parked car with her young son when suddenly, out of nowhere, a human body crashed just right into her windshield. I mean, that's probably one of the most traumatizing things that she's ever seen. I mean, where the hell did this body come from? Well, a Pacific Southwest plane crashed into another plane, killing 144 people. The person that smashed through the windshield was one of the victims. I just can't imagine what this must have been like. This is actually known as one of the worst aviation crashes in California's history. Blood drips onto our list at number 1. In 2008, bloody rain was falling from the sky over a small Spanish city. The residents were scared that this blood rain was part of some sort of hazardous chemicals, or it was an act of God. Priests in the village were saying that this rain was a sign from God that people will have to change their sinful ways. But they were wrong. According to scientists, this bloody rain was actually a lot less scary. The liquid turned out to be rainwater. It was infused with a type of microalgae. When the water mixed with the algae, it changed the pigment to red. Could you imagine if this was actually blood? Now that would be the biggest stain in history.
Kicking off the list at number 10, rocket roulette. Okay, remember May 2021, like not that long ago at all, when a large piece of space junk was about to crash land somewhere on Earth and we had no idea where it was gonna hit. Well, where did it land? At the time, this was one of the biggest pieces of human-made space junk to ever crash towards Earth. They said it would land in New York or New Zealand. Okay, that's not concerning at all. The debris came from the Long March 5B rocket and it landed in the Indian Ocean, with most of it burning up upon re-entry. Usually when rockets discard pieces, it's done so strategically, falling into the ocean, normally the Atlantic. This was not supposed to happen. Thankfully it didn't land in New York. It would have been an Avengers level threat. Imagine if that happened. Oh my god, that'd be so scary. Number 9, Hodge's meteorite. These happen pretty often, but luckily most of the time it doesn't wipe out everybody or everything. Sorry dinosaurs, but you took one for the team. Thanks. Back in 1954, residents in Talladega County, Alabama, noticed a ball of fire heading towards them. See, we didn't have Twitter back then. We couldn't warn people that a meteor was maybe gonna wipe us out. We also didn't really know how to tell if meteorites were coming back then, with technology being a little, old. So it was alarming, especially for Anne Elizabeth Hodges, who got hit by that space rock. Yeah, she got hit by a meteorite. I can't even get hit by a paintball without complaining and taking the day off work, let alone a space rock. That's insane. You may be asking, was she outside doing Pilates? Was she stargazing? Nope, she was napping in her living room and an 8-pound chunk of meteorite smashed through her roof and then grazed her hip. She got hit by a space rock and received just a bruise. First human to ever get hit by a meteorite. What a flex. Number 8, iguanas. Okay, we're dipping into the weird side of this list. Here we go. Back in 2018, Florida got another odd headline. This time it was frozen iguanas falling from the skies. They got hit with their biggest snowfall in 28 years, so these cold-blooded dudes started falling from suburban tree branches. People were just walking to get groceries, trying to, make it through this harsh winter, and iguanas are freezing and falling off trees in front of them. There's just like 4 lying in a backyard. The crazy thing is they're not dead, they're actually just paralyzed. So they come back to life later. Officials were calling for residents to not touch them or pick them up. Like, hey, sorry I can't make it, there's a frozen iguana sleeping on my car. Yeah, I'll see you tomorrow, we gotta wait this one out. Number 7, golf balls. Heading over to Florida yet again. September 1st, 1969. Nice. A rainstorm started to turn heads. Sometimes large hail is described as a golf ball, right? It's golf ball sized hail. Well, this time it was actually raining golf balls. Literally. Dozens of golf balls fell from the sky and we never really figured out where they came from. Of course, being Florida, there's many golf courses around, but none of them could claim the golf balls. So the most realistic explanation is that a local pond had these piled up over time, then this storm, this water spout came through, sucked up everything, and then just hucked golf balls around town. Florida's western Gulf Coast. More like Florida's western Gulf Coast, am I right? I'll walk my way out, that's fine. Number 6, a massive meteorite. Getting a bit more cosmic in our list again, we have the Jinlin meteorite. This week, NASA launched a $330 million mission just to see if they can successfully knock an asteroid off its course. It's not heading for Earth, just to be clear, they just want to test this out. So something for sure is coming, that's what I'm gathering here. This is a huge test for just, we'll see what happens, just some space pool. Back in 1766, a meteorite did hit Earth. It pierced through China's northeast sky, and then it exploded, broke apart into a few pieces, and hit the ground. The largest piece is now on display in the Jinlin Meteorite Museum in Jinlin City. It's called Meteorite 1. It's massive. Number 5, mud. Mud spas are so hot right now. Exfoliates your dead skin cells, prevents eczema, relieves arthritis pain. Some decent benefits there. But when you don't know you're about to be covered in mud and then you're absolutely covered in mud, it can be jarring. Back in 1902, dust clouds in Illinois were so bad that when they were blown over to New York or New Jersey, the storm there turned that dust into mud. So for just a few minutes only, thankfully, mud rained down all over poor civilians. The event was hilariously described. People were outside wearing their old-timey 1902 outfits, and then they got drenched in mud out of nowhere. Clothes hanging out to dry, absolutely wrecked. The mud storm went for 40 miles, mucking up everyone and everything in its path. I just know there was an outdoor wedding during this and no one wants to talk about it. Number 4, boiled bats. This is some Tim Burton level shit right here. I felt sick writing this, I'm not gonna lie. Sorry, bat lovers. January 2018, hundreds of bats started falling from the skies and trees. They were falling all over Australia, Campbelltown. See, there was a brutal heat wave happening, so these bats, a species called Pteropus poliocephalus, they're normally good with heat. They can handle 30 degrees Celsius, then anything over that, their brains start to get all loopy. The colony manager for the Campbelltown bats made a statement about the apocalyptic site, saying that they basically boiled on the inside. There were about 200 dead bats found that day, and honestly, I couldn't imagine seeing that. At least those iguanas from Florida came back to life. These poor things just stayed dead. Number 3, spiders. I've been talking about spiders lately on this channel, so I figured I would tell you the worst spider story that I've ever read. Australia 2015, again, Australia, back on its bullshit. Millions of tiny spiders started to fall from the sky. This phenomenon is called spider rain or angel hair. I like spider rain more, to be honest. It kind of gets to the punch quicker. Angel hair, that's something I want to check out. Absolutely not. Don't go outside when this happens. These showers happen when millions of spiders all balloon at the same time, depending on the season. So they climb trees, then they stick their ass out, and then they parachute across town onto your lap. You can't see them because they're tiny and there's millions of them and they're flying above us, but they're happening all the time. Sometimes these guys land in heavily populated areas, and let me tell you, if I was vacationing in Australia and it began to rain spiders, I would write a formal complaint. I would be upset. No, it's even more gross than that. Number 2, beef. Yep, flakes of beef were falling from the sky. That's so gross. How, Taylor? Tell us how this happened. Well, 1876, there was a small window where a field in Bath County, Kentucky got a meat storm. Yeah, we're gonna call it a meat storm. That sounds perfect for what it is, honestly. They have no idea where this came from still today, or if it was even meat. That's pretty gross. They had 3 dudes just stand outside like, with their tongue out like it's a winter wonderland, and they couldn't decide if it was bear meat, they thought it might have been buzzard barf, or bacteria from jellyfish that made its way into town and into the air. If you ever think it's raining meat, don't eat it. The Kentucky meat shower is still a mystery, and you know what? Let's not solve it. I'm good with that. Finally, number 1, treasure. The best for last, and you know what? I didn't make it fucking disgusting. You're welcome. Back in June 1940, the Russian villain of Meschera had a lucky rainfall. Coins from the 16th century began raining down. What a scene. Sometimes it rains iguanas that are frozen, other times it's literal treasure. It came from an undisclosed treasure trove that was buried close by, and a storm lifted the newly exposed treasure into the sky. Thank you, soil erosion. Imagine getting hit with a 16th century coin. That would for sure leave a mark. You'd have to pay your medical bills by using the coin that hit you. Full circle, that would be nuts. Kicking off the list at number 10. Fish. Okay, yuck, right off the bat. Imagine you're heading home trying to beat the storm that's suddenly appeared out of nowhere in a coastal town, and then fish start falling out of the sky. It's surprisingly and hilariously pretty common. Strong winds generated from tornadoes or hurricanes can sometimes suck up schools of fish and then drop them over a grocery store parking lot and then terrify everybody involved. Back in 2017 in Tampico, Mexico, on a Tuesday morning, it rained small fish. And yes, they're still alive, many of them, which makes this sad but also kind of funny. It makes it way funnier. There's numerous accounts of this phenomenon happening throughout old history. In this 1680 Erasmus Francisci painting, it appears to be raining rats. So maybe it was a strong hurricane, sucked up a bunch of dirty rats and threw them at some poor sailor. They had to document it via paint. Also, documents from Roman naturalist Pliny the Elder spoke about flightless animals falling from the sky back in like 2 BC, you know what I mean? Storms of frogs and fish? This is terrifying. I hope I never experience this in real life. Has this happened to you in Florida or anything like that? Comment down below. Number 9, spiders. Yeah, not a fun list anymore, eh? Not everything that falls from the sky can feed a family. Sometimes it can just terrify one instead. Back in 2015 in, you guessed it, Australia, residents of Goulburn woke up to the town just caked in spiders. Yeah, tiny spiders, just millions of them, just covering everything. It's horrible. I have goosebumps talking about this. Everything was webbed. There were tiny black spiderlings, and resident Ian Watson told reporters that, quote, "When I looked up at the sun, it looked like this tunnel of webs going up for a couple of 100 meters into the sky," end quote. Also, delete memory. Thank you. Rick Vedder, an entomologist at the University of California at Riverside, says that many spiders are ballooning around us every day. Just, not all at once, so we don't notice them. Yeah, this is happening all the time, so keep your head up, I guess. Ugh. I saw one do it one time, and I couldn't believe my eyes. It was a spider just hanging, and then all of a sudden he just went up and away. And I was like, there's no building, there's no scaffolding. I don't understand what's going on. Now we know. Number 8, candy. Okay, let's sweeten up this list for a hot minute before we throw up on our keyboards. Great. Fish and spiders falling from the sky. What about something not horrible, Taylor? Do we have any of those? Back in 1987 in Lake County, California, it rained candy twice. Yeah, what the hell happened here? How many cavities fell from the sky? That's amazing. Balls of crystallized sugar around a 1/4 inch in diameter fell. Yeah, just sticky syrup. It was flakes of crystallized sugar that had floated up into a storm and then had fallen down somewhere else. Not the worst case scenario. Nothing like Number 7, red rain. This would be pretty alarming. Red rain? Is this the apocalypse? I would never go outside again. Residents of northwest Spain were alarmed one morning when it started to rain blood. Yeah, just red. Obviously, that's the thing. That's awful. This was 2014. Water fountains were red. That was a telltale sign something was afoot here, but where did this red rain come from? This microscopic algae fell from the skies in a previous rainfall. This freshwater algae called Haematococcus pluvialis, which turns bright red when under stress, ended up just, falling and scaring everybody. This also happened in September 2001 as well. It rained red water over Kerala, India. A case of algae spores that frightened lots of residents first. That's all this is. Number 6, treasure. Back in June 1940, the Russian village of Meskchera had a lucky rainfall. Coins. Yeah, coins fell from the sky. Coins from the 16th century, of all times, began raining down, which would probably hurt your head. Sometimes it rains iguanas, other times it rains treasure. Yeah, welcome to Earth. It all came from an undiscovered treasure trove that was buried close by, and again, a storm lifted the newly exposed treasure into the sky. And then from there, it only had one place to go. Thank you, soil erosion. That's not bad. Imagine getting hit with a 16th century coin though. That would leave a mark. You'd have to pay your medical bills using the coin that hit you. Wouldn't that be ironic? Number 5, golf balls. Speaking of painful circular things falling from the sky, here we go. Heading over to Florida, of course. September 1st, 1969, a rainstorm started to turn heads and also make heads look down and run into buildings immediately. Sometimes large hail is described as golf balls. Well, this time it was literally raining golf balls. Dozens of golf balls fell from the sky and we never figured out where they came from. Now, of course, being Florida, there's many golf courses around, so there's a few hints, sure, but none of them could officially claim the golf balls. The most realistic explanation is that a local pond had these piled up over time, and the storm, this water spout, just sucked up everything, probably alligators included, terrifying, and then just launched it around town. Then they bounced for 48 minutes, never stopped. Florida's western Gulf Coast, more like the Gulf Coast, hit that thumbs up. I tried really hard on that one. Number 4, 2021 rocket. Yeah, remember last year when a large piece of space junk was about to crash somewhere on Earth and we had no idea where it was gonna hit? Found that out over Twitter. I was like, ooh, rocket roulette, what does that mean? Well, where did it land? Well, at the time, this was one of the biggest pieces of human-made space junk to ever crash towards Earth. So, nice, new record, but also terrifying. They said it would land in New York or New Zealand. Okay, great, awesome. Thanks for the tip-off, space experts. Thanks, NASA. The debris came from the Long March 5B rocket and landed in the Indian Ocean, thankfully, with most of it burning up upon re-entry. So usually when rockets discard pieces, it's done so strategically, falling into the ocean, normally the Atlantic. This was not supposed to happen. We were not supposed to see that on Twitter. This wasn't supposed to be a maybe. Maybe it'll hit New York, maybe New Zealand. No, never again. It was like almost an Avengers level threat right there, you know what I mean? That was scary. Number 3, Hodge's meteorite. These happen pretty often, but luckily, most of the time, it doesn't, wipe out everybody and everything on our planet, like the dinosaurs. Sorry guys, thanks for taking one for the team. We appreciate it. Back in 1954, residents at Talladega County, Alabama, noticed a ball of fire heading towards them. Yeah, this was back when we didn't have Twitter and we couldn't warn people that a meteor was going to hit. We also really didn't know how to tell if meteorites were coming or, going, so it was alarming, especially for Anne Elizabeth Hodges, who got hit by said space rock. Yeah, that ball of fire hit her. Now you may be asking, was she outside stargazing? Was she doing a cosmic ritual? No, she was napping in her living room and then an 8-pound chunk of meteorite smashed through her roof and then grazed her hip. Yeah, she got grazed by a meteorite and only received a bruise. First human to ever get hit by a meteorite. What a flex that is. Also, glad you're okay. I thought orange hockey balls hurt growing up. A meteorite? Jesus, Chris, imagine that. I don't know, the orange hockey balls did suck though. It wouldn't even make a sound too, it'd just be like, oh. It's made of like glass. What is it? Number 2, iguanas. Okay, we're immediately dipping back into the weird side of this list, of course. Gotta finish on a note. Back in 2018, Florida got another odd headline. This time it was frozen iguanas that were falling from the skies. Yeah, frozen iguanas. I couldn't think of anything more strange. They got hit with their first huge snowfall in 28 years, so these cold-blooded dudes started to fall from suburban tree branches from above, right? People were just walking to get groceries and iguanas are freezing and falling off in front of them. The craziest thing is though, is that they're just paralyzed, that they later will come back to life. Officials were calling for residents to not touch them or pick them up. Just gotta wait this one out. Yeah, sorry I can't make it to work, boss. There's a frozen iguana on the roof of my car, so gotta work from home, I guess, until he thaws. Number 1, go fast. Okay, a bit more modern now. This one was trending recently, but it was originally recorded back in 2015. It was part of that big alien leak that we got to witness over the pandemic, which also, side note, that was fun. Middle of a pandemic, the news is also like, hey, UFOs, maybe, we don't know. What you're seeing here is an FA-18 Super Hornet following a UAP. Yeah, we don't call them UFOs anymore. That's so 2000s. That's so M. Night Shyamalan to call them UFOs. No, now they're UAPs. And a US Navy personnel caught this UAP flying alongside the East Coast. There was no exhaust, no wings, just a really fast flying egg. Nice. A 45-foot long egg, 20,000 feet above the Atlantic, then flew away, and we haven't seen it since. Number 10, NASA's flying frog. We'll kick this list off with one of my favorite photos from history ever. On September 13th, 2011, NASA's Leidy spacecraft lifted off from Wallops Flight Facility in Virginia. Now, to witness a spacecraft take off and go to space, it's amazing, right? People travel across the country to hopefully catch a glimpse of this experience, right? Now, one frame of this specific launch, one photo here, shows an airborne frog. Just flying, he's spread eagle, just in the air, no idea how he got there. The team behind the launch confirms that this photo is real. Can you imagine what's going through his mind right now during this photo? In fact, what was he doing 5 seconds before this launch was ignited? Just sitting on a throttle booster, eating a fly. He's like, man, what can go wrong? Life, you know? If you ever have the chance to check out a NASA launch, keep your head up. It might rain frogs depending where you are. Number 9. Planet 9. With James Webb in the picture, we're seeing more of our universe now than ever. For a while now, astronomers have been confident about a 9th planet orbiting the sun. Now, this 9th planet is hiding far behind Neptune, so we haven't seen it, obviously. We've been here before, though. It's hard to tell the scale of these things. The largest asteroid in the solar system was discovered back in 1801, and that day it was initially classified as a planet. But just like Pluto, it was, Kicked out of the planet party. Get out of here. You're too small for us. Must be this tall to be a planet. Peace. Talk about this 9th planet began in 2014 when American astronomer Dr. Scott Shepard, he found a small dwarf planet candidate called 2012 VP113. And the orbit of this dwarf planet was too large. It didn't make any sense. Something had to be assisting this colossal spin. For the planet to be acting this way, it would have to be 10 times more massive than our planet here, Earth, and it would take at least 10,000 years to orbit the sun just once. So, Happy New Year, I guess. And considering that it's tucked far behind Neptune, this 9th planet is around 200 times further out than ours. So far, we've covered about 30% of the prime area this planet could be in, and every space fact that I do, I also feel so anxious right after. Holy smokes, space is so scary. Number 8. Bermuda Triangle of Space. Awesome, we love these. If you thought the Bermuda Triangle here on Earth was jarring, buckle up. Turns out they got one in space as well. Awesome, great. I feel the space anxiety in my chest today. A handful of astronauts have experienced this in real life while orbiting our planet. They call it the South Atlantic Anomaly, and it's part of the Earth's magnetic field, and many scientists have connected this triangle to the Van Allen radiation belts. So right above the South Atlantic, when the International Space Station passes through this area, computers often stop working, and astronauts will sometimes experience cosmic flashes in their eyes. That's terrifying. The Hubble has also glitched out when trying to take observations, so what's going on here in this weird triangle? Who knows? Maybe it's the Illuminati that Kanye's talking about. Number 7. ELST PIZARRO. This next one is quite bizarro. First discovered in 1979, its orbit in the asteroid belt led to it being classified initially as an asteroid. Yet when it was examined more closely in 1996, it showed itself to have a tail like a comet. We love an evolving space rock, I guess. Keep changing, keep confusing us, sure. One possibility, maybe there was a collision at some point and that crash ended up exposing some subsurface ice on the body, which is slowly now being lost to space. So now it's whipping by, which explains the new tail. ELST PIZARRO was an asteroid and then a comet, and then once its layers have melted off, now it could be just a plain old boring asteroid. Again, we're not too sure here. ELST PIZARRO got the zoomies for a hot minute, but we're not sure why. Experts had hoped to launch the Castalia spacecraft in 2028 to get a better look, but since 2016 the European Space Agency hasn't had any funding to give this project the green light, so we'll never know probably. Awesome. What's Elon doing? Can we send him up? Take a look. Number 6. Scotland Fireball. What's believed to be space junk belonging to Elon Musk, this fireball seen crashing down over Scotland and Northern Ireland has experts scratching their heads. The fireball was visible for 20 seconds around 10 p.m. on September 14th. Reminder, this was only a couple of months ago, so you might remember it. There were around 1,200 reports on the ball, including 10 videos. The UK Meteor Network wrote on Twitter the next day stating, quote, "We have checked the Starlink deorbit and it would have not have come anywhere near the UK. At this point we cannot find any known space junk or satellite deorbit that could account for this fireball. We are looking at the data again." End quote. This lasted 20 seconds, where a meteor would be much, much shorter. Any theories as to what this was? I know a lot of our viewers live around this area, so comment down below if you witnessed Optimus Prime's arrival 2 months ago. Number 5. Michigan Lights. If you're a fan of the series Unsolved Mysteries over on Netflix, this next one here should ring a familiar bell. March 8th, 1994, more than 300 911 calls were made, all of which were reporting strange lights in the night sky right along the eastern shore of Lake Michigan. That is way too close to our home right now. That's terrifying. I was born in 1994 as well, so who knows? Maybe I was dropped off by aliens. These objects, these UFOs in question, were described as round like discs, or they were like floating spheres. Both jarring descriptions. They all had different colored lights as well, so planes are obviously out of the question. It's been so long now that the case has finally found its way to Netflix, so no, it is still not solved. Number 4. Steve. Nice. An unexplainable light in the sky named Steve. This sounds Canadian already. Back in 2018, this mystery came to light. There's a light in the sky in Canada, and scientists still have no idea what it is. All they know is that they call it Steve. Steve is short for strong thermal emission velocity enhancement. Now, Steve's appearance, I can't lie, he is beautiful. He's gorgeous to look at. Steve looks like a white purplish ribbon that stretches throughout the sky, almost like the northern lights, only scientists are sure that Steve is not an aurora. It's very hot and it doesn't last long. Classic Steve, doesn't last long, eh? Must be Canadian. Number 3. Hodge's meteorite. Now these meteorites, they can happen pretty often, but luckily most of the time it doesn't wipe out everybody and everything. That's pretty good. Sorry dinosaurs, thanks for taking one for the team for us. Back in 1954, residents in Talladega County, Alabama, noticed a ball of fire heading towards them. Now, we didn't have Twitter, we couldn't warn people that maybe a meteor was about to hit and wipe us out forever, and we also didn't really know how to tell if meteorites were coming and how scary it was, so it was alarming. Especially for Anne Elizabeth Hodges, who got hit by that said space rock. Yeah, that ball of fire that we always see going through the sky, that hit her. It grazed her hip. Now you may be asking, was she outside stargazing at this point? Was she doing some cosmic ritual? No, she was napping in her living room, and then an 8-pound chunk of meteorite smashed through her roof, and again, only grazed her hip. She got grazed by a meteorite and then received a bruise. First human to ever get hit by a meteorite, and probably the last. What a flex that is. Imagine putting that on Tinder. Number 2, go fast. Okay, a bit more modern now. This one was trending recently, but it was originally recorded back in 2015. It was part of that big alien leak that we got to witness over the pandemic. That was fun. That was just what we needed. Middle of a pandemic, the news is like, hey, check out these UFOs also. We don't know. Good luck. Now what you're seeing here is an FA-18 Super Hornet following a UAP. Now we don't call them UFOs anymore because that's so M. Night Shyamalan, alright? We don't do that. We call them UAPs. Also sounds a little smarter. US Navy personnel caught this UAP flying along the east coast, and there was no exhaust, there was no wings, just a really fast sphere, almost like I mentioned earlier. A 45-foot long egg, 25,000 feet above the Atlantic, just whipping, and it flew away and nobody saw it ever since. Do we think UFOs are balls like spheres? I think that's the new thing. We went from discs to spheres. Finally, number 1, Uranus tilts. Jokes aside, and you best believe I had about 20 ready, we're still trying to figure out why Uranus rotates on its side, when every other planet has their axis pointing upwards, right? Uranus's tilt is 98 degrees, so there's long periods of time, like 40 years long, where the North or South Pole will just face the sun directly. It'll just grill the sun for 40 years straight. Perfect place to get your tan on. The other pole, not so much. You're gonna be pale for 40 years, like my dad. Other planets in our solar system, they have a prograde rotation. Now Venus, that has a retrograde rotation. But why? What's going on here? So far, our leading theory is that something massive may have hit these planets many, many moons ago, early in their planet life. Scientists believe that Uranus was hit by a meteor and completely threw it off course. Gotta be careful. Gotta watch Uranus, alright? Hit that thumbs up for Uranus.
Starting off in our number 10 spot, we have space energy. While a team of astronomers was working to map out the universe, which, for a second, imagine that's your job. What a task. Anyway, while they were doing this, they found a very mysterious object that is sending out bursts of energy every 20 minutes. This object is somewhere around 4,000 light years away, but despite this distance, it was sending out energy bursts that were so big that it was one of the largest radio sources in the entire sky. That's no easy feat. These energy bursts were occurring in a cycle where one would happen for 1 minute every 20 minutes before it would disappear for a few hours, and then this whole thing would repeat over again. There is nothing that we know of in this universe right now that would behave like this, so at the moment, while there are of course many hypotheses and theories, this is a mystery waiting to be uncovered. In our number 9 spot today, we have 2022 AE1. Just a few months ago in January, as the year began, scientists were watching an asteroid dubbed 2022 AE1 that became the riskiest one observed in over a decade. The initial observations of this asteroid placed it impacting with Earth on roughly July 4th, 2023, which would mean that there would not be enough time to deflect it, and this asteroid was large enough to do some real damage should it strike an area. Yeah, it was most definitely a cause for concern. There was a week where the moon outshone this asteroid, and so experts weren't able to see it and continued tracking its path, but once the moon was out of this phase, the risk seemed to have diminished. As of now, this asteroid has been taken off of the risk list, but who knows? It seems as though things can change quite quickly and unexpectedly outside the cozy home and protection of our atmosphere. In our number 8 spot today, we have a meteorite. On February 28th, 2021, reports came pouring in from across the UK of an unusual streak of light that was seen in the sky. These reports were far behind the UK's Fireball Alliance though, as their cameras had already picked up the signal and they were already in the midst of estimating its landing site. That's right, this streak of light was a meteor. if the title didn't give it away. It's a remnant of our early solar system that has been flying through space at unbelievable speeds until it came down through our atmosphere and ended its long, awesome journey scattered in a bunch of pieces across rural Gloucestershire. Teams were sent out to be responsible for the recovery of the extraterrestrial material, which was found in a family's driveway as well as in a sheep's field nearby. This meteorite is a rare specimen known as primitive carbonaceous chondrite, which is said to contain materials that have been essentially unaltered since the formation of the solar system 4.5 billion years ago. The pieces of this meteorite can give us insights into the building blocks of the planets, and it can potentially give us clues as to how the Earth came to be this wonderful planet that possesses all of the resources necessary to sustain human life. In our number 7 spot today we have King Tut's meteorite. So I actually learned about this one from Taylor, since he's the little history bee, and it is so interesting. Quite recently, researchers made quite the discovery that actually solved a mystery surrounding a dagger that once belonged to King Tut 3,400 years ago. An analysis of the king's weapon found that it was actually forged out of meteorite just outside of Egypt. That is so cool. This whole artifact and the way it was forged is one of the greatest mysteries in history. It is exceptionally unusual in the fact that it was made out of iron, which is a material that the Egyptians would not begin to smelt for another 500 years. This was just one of the many treasures that was found within his tomb, and one that continues to add to the incredible accomplishments of the ancient Egyptians. In our number 6 spot today we have Tabby's star. This star, which has also been referenced as the WTF star, is an F-type main sequence star which is located in the constellation Cygnus about 1,470 light years away from Earth. This star is of particular importance because of the fact that it shows unusual light shifts, which includes a 22% dimming in brightness. Basically, from our point of view, something continually blocks the star, and it likely isn't a planet because a Jupiter-sized planet would only block about 1% of the star the size of this one, so what could it possibly be? There are a few theories out there surrounding this anomaly, but none are able to fully explain what is happening here. Some believe that it is some sort of uneven ring of dust orbiting the star, and others believe that the star's luminosity fluctuates depending on the efficiency of the heat being transported to its photosphere. These are just 2 of the theories surrounding this star, but there are many more out there, and at this point we just don't know. Hopefully though, the James Webb Telescope, which was launched at the end of last year, will be able to get a more clear picture of what may be happening over there on Tabby's star. In our number 5 spot today we have new material. Of course, when meteorites show up to Earth, people are dying to get their hands on them to study them and see what all they contain. We get some pretty incredible deliveries of things that arrive on meteorites, and analysis has been able to identify about 300 minerals in different space debris that comes down to Earth, and 40 of those are ones that have only been found in meteorites. This is all very cool and interesting, but one of the most fascinating is the Allende meteorite. This is one that exploded over Mexico in 1969, and after analyzing samples from it, in 2012 scientists announced the discovery of a material that had never been seen on Earth, and that frankly no one knew was even possible to make. It was called pangite, and it consists of quite a strange variety of elements, including titanium, zirconium, and scandium. In our number 4 spot today we have CFBD SIR 2149. Ah yes, the rogue planet with the easiest name to remember. This planet really had the scientific community on edge in 2012. This is because most of the planets we are familiar with orbit a star. I mean, look at the one we're most familiar with. We clearly and thankfully do. That's not the case for this guy though. CFBD SIR 2149 seems to just be drifting across space without any sort of star. This planet is also huge. It is thought to be 7 times more massive than Jupiter, and Jupiter is quite a bit more massive than Earth. This isn't necessarily anything that we need to worry about. I mean, we're at home in our solar system with our star, not wandering around the universe or galaxy, so that's good. I mean, let's just hope it stays that way. Astronomers believe that there are likely billions of rogue planets, and that they might even outweigh the amount of planets that have suns. In our number 3 spot today we have shooting stars. Okay, so we often look to the night sky in an attempt to see a shooting star, and the chances might be pretty good depending on how light polluted the area is. I mean, either that or you're seeing one of the Starlink satellites, but either way, we know that shooting stars aren't really stars at all, and are instead meteors burning up as they move quickly through Earth's atmosphere. But what if I told you that there really are some shooting stars that are actually stars? Hypervelocity stars were discovered by astronomers in 2005, and it is thought that they occur, or form, when a binary star system, or a star system that has two stars, gets destroyed by a black hole. One of the stars in the system will usually fall into the black hole, which just may send the other one flying across through space as fast as millions of miles per hour. It's definitely not the same thing that we think of when we think of shooting stars, but it is quite the galactic event. In our number 2 spot today we have quasars. If you aren't exactly familiar with them, they are super compact objects that kind of have a star-like appearance as they are very luminous, and it is thought that these guys are powered by supermassive black holes. So there's obviously quite a few interesting things about these, but one of the most interesting is in relation to one in particular called APM 082795255. This one contains a black hole that is surrounded by a vapor cloud, and within the cloud is 140 trillion times the amount of water on the Earth. It's the largest water reservoir ever discovered. That's insane. Researchers believe that this giant watery cloud formed long ago, just 1.6 billion years after the universe itself. In our number 1 spot today we have stardust. Just a few years ago, researchers in Australia made a startling discovery. Ancient grains that were discovered inside of a meteorite that had landed inside of the country were studied, and it was revealed that they were actually grains of stardust. This dust was formed somewhere from 5 to 7 billion years ago, and it is now the oldest solid material ever found on Earth. These kinds of pre-solar grains are a very rare find. In fact, they're so rare that they're only found in about 5% of meteorites that have fallen to Earth. This is a fascinating discovery because having something like this really is the next best thing aside from having the actual star itself, and it gives insight into our universe billions and billions of years ago. Starting off in our number 10 spot we have radiation-proof bacteria. In 2002, Russian astrobiologists hypothesized that a bacteria here on Earth may have actually evolved on Mars. Deinococcus radioduranis is the most tough bacteria on Earth. It can withstand even the most extreme conditions such as cold, dehydration, vacuum, and acid, but the craziest part is that it is virtually radiation proof. These little microbes can withstand several thousand times the amount of radiation a human can withstand, as well as more radiation than any other bacteria on Earth. You can even find this bacteria on the inside of a nuclear reactor. Scientists did an experiment to see how quickly this bacteria could build up a stronger radiation resistance by zapping the bacteria with enough radiation to kill 99.9% of it, and then leaving the remaining 0.01% to repopulate before zapping it again and repeating the process. It was concluded that it would have taken E. coli thousands and thousands of rounds to build up the same resistance that this hardy bacteria did in only 44 rounds. With this experiment, and based on the dose of radiation they gave each bacteria, it would take millions and millions of years to get even close to that amount of radiation they gave the bacteria in one cycle. Since Earth just doesn't carry that amount of radiation, it has led some scientists to speculate that since Mars is virtually unprotected and receives extremely high amounts of radiation, these bacteria may have evolved on Mars and gained their resistance in just a few 100,000 years, and that they may have been flung off of Mars by an asteroid and then brought to Earth on meteorites. It certainly is just a hypothesis at this point, but really, how else can we explain this random superpowered bacteria that is unlike anything else on our Earth? In our number 9 spot today we have the USS Princeton UFO. What's a space list without the mention of a UFO sighting? This one took place in 2004. On November 14th of that year, the USS Princeton noticed an unknown aircraft of some sort that was about 100 miles off the coast of San Diego. For 2 weeks prior to this, the crew had been tracking a strange flying object that would start out at around 80,000 feet before extremely quickly dropping to hover right above the Pacific Ocean. Black Aces Commander David Fravor and Lieutenant Commander Jim Slate of Strike Fighter Squadron 41 went over in 2 fighter jets in order to kind of scope out the situation, and when they arrived they saw what at first appeared to be churning water, while there was an oval shape just below the surface. After this, a white oval shaped object appeared above the water, but it had no markings on it. Like, we're talking no windows, nothing that would indicate an engine, no wings, and the infrared monitors on the jets didn't pick up any sort of exhaust. The commander and lieutenant commander tried to intercept this strange aircraft, but it very quickly flew away and reappeared on the monitor 60 miles away. Like, when I say quickly, I mean it was moving at 3 times the speed of sound and over twice the speed of the fighter jets. Like some Top Gun Maverick stuff. So faster than any kind of technology we currently have. We still don't know exactly what this was, but I'll tell you one thing. We definitely don't have that kind of technology. In our number 8 spot today, we have the USO. UFO to USO. Daryl Miklos is an explorer who took a deep dive following maps that had been put together by his friend and former astronaut Gordon Cooper. The map Daryl was using was initially made to help identify more than 100 magnetic anomalies in the sea. During one dive at a location within the Bermuda Triangle, where everything weird happens, he thought he was going to find an ancient shipwreck, but instead he found something that continues to stump researchers and Daryl himself. He came across a very strange structure that wasn't like anything he had seen before. This structure had long obtrusions which stuck out from the sides, and the whole thing was covered in coral, so whatever it has been down there for hundreds, if not thousands of years. Daryl has said, quote, "There's identical formations in 3 different areas, and they don't look nature-made, they don't look man-made. Certainly nothing I've ever seen based on my experience, and I have years of experience at doing this. We've identified multiple different types of shipwreck material. This doesn't match or look anything like that." People have started speculating that this structure may just be the remains of a crashed UFO. If it isn't that, then what else could it be? In our number 7 spot today, we have the ANTIKYTHERA mechanism. The ANTIKYTHERA mechanism is an extremely mysterious discovery that has stumped researchers ever since it was found. This artifact was found 150 feet below the surface of the Aegean Sea in a shipwreck, and it is the oldest kind of computer ever recorded, as it was dated back to the 7th century BCE. The author David Childress likened the finding to if they had found a jet plane in King Tut's tomb. That's how bizarre this discovery really was. Due to the complexity and oddity of the finding, alien enthusiasts have believed for quite some time that it may have been technology that was passed down from some sort of superior being, so aliens. When the artifact was recreated in order to learn about the mysteries it holds, the mechanism was able to calculate the position and running time of each planet. How would they have been able to create this without the use of sophisticated astronomical tools? I'm not saying that this is like concrete proof of alien life, but I don't know. There's just gotta be something else at play here. In our number 6 spot today, we have fossilized microbes. This is a piece of evidence that came from 1996, and it is said to have come all the way from Mars. 25 years ago, scientists said that they had potentially found what appeared to be fossilized microbes in a lump of Martian rock. This rock was hypothesized to have come off of Mars after some sort of collision that the planet had, and then just casually floated around in space for some 15 million years before it ended up in Antarctica in 1984. You know, just the kind of thing that happens in space. Once the rock was found and analyzed, it was found that it contained organic molecules and small specks of mineralized magnetite, which can sometimes be found in the bacteria here on Earth. Once viewed with an electron microscope, there were signs of bacteria found. Of course, with anything like this, there will always be skeptics, and some have claimed that the magnetite wasn't that similar to those found in bacteria, and some claim that the signs of nanobacteria were just grown in a lab. I'm not a scientist, nor have I seen this Mars rock, so I obviously can't tell you who is telling the truth here, but what I can say is that neither of the people who believe this rock came from Mars, or those who claim that it's fake, can prove their point without any kind of doubt, so I'll just let you draw your own conclusions on this one. In our number 5 spot today, we have quark gluon plasma. So basically, scientists believe that right after the Big Bang, there was this sort of really hot, goopy kind of a substance that was created, and it was made up of all different kinds of matter. Everything is moving around at the speed of light, it's hot, it's fast, and it's like cosmic soup. Okay, so experts at the Large Hadron Collider, which is the world's largest and most powerful particle accelerator, wanted to recreate this space soup. You know, part of the whole trying to solve the mysteries of the universe's origins kind of thing. When they did this and got the machine to recreate this, they ended up recording the highest temperature ever. Apparently this soup was measured at 9.9 trillion degrees Fahrenheit. We obviously can all understand that that is insanely hot, but just how hot? Well, that is 366,000 times hotter than the center of the sun. In our number 4 spot today, we have energetic cosmic rays. Energetic cosmic rays are described as high energy protons and atomic nuclei that move through space at nearly the speed of light. There are some that originate from supernova, but there are some that originate from outside of our galaxy, and those ones have scientists wondering where they are coming from and what the source of them is. As these cosmic rays flow into our solar system, their paths are bent by the magnetic fields of both the sun and the earth. Upon impact with Earth's atmosphere, these rays produce a shower of secondary particles. Some of these particles do end up reaching Earth, but most are intercepted by either the magnetosphere or the heliosphere. The strongest cosmic rays are extremely powerful, and they can have energies of over 100 million times greater than a man-made collider. If you're wondering why you should care about this space mystery, it's because these things have the power to cause our digital systems to crash, and in our ever-increasing digital world, that could cause some major disruptions to our life. That is why we care about how many of their origins remain a complete mystery that has scientists stumped. And also because shouldn't we just know where these things that are bombarding Earth's atmosphere are coming from? Concerning is definitely the word I'd use, but honestly, what part of space isn't concerning? In our number 3 spot today, we have ELST PIZARRO. This is a weird little object that has been stumping scientists since it was first discovered in 1979. So basically, asteroids and comets tend to be fairly easy to tell apart. I mean, an asteroid is a solid lump of rock and metal, and you tend to find them more in the inner solar system, especially in the asteroid belt. And on the other hand, we have comets, which are usually more icy objects that travel from the outer areas of the solar system, and sometimes when they react with the solar radiation, they have those famous tails. So when ELST PIZARRO was first discovered, it was orbiting in the asteroid belt, so it was classified as an asteroid. Flash forward to 1996 and closer examination shows that it had a tail, like a comet. At first, experts thought that perhaps the tail was a result of some sort of collision, which is not uncommon for asteroids, but when the brightness and structure of the tail changed over time, it became clear that it was more of an ongoing process. Basically, this object showed signs and trademarks of both asteroids and comets, and it truly was a baffling discovery. Basically, the discovery of this object led to an entirely new classification: active asteroids. In our number 2 spot today, we have the fastest black hole. The biggest black hole that we have found so far is said to weigh about 40 billion times the mass of our sun, or about 20 times the size of our solar system. That's so scary. That's so big! Some of the outer slowest orbiting planets in our solar system, like let's take Neptune as an example, orbits at a speed of about 165 Earth years. This huge black hole, the one that's 20 times the size of our solar system, yet it orbits once every 3 months. Do you know how fast that is? Neptune is considered slow at going 12,148 miles per hour. The outer edge of this black hole is moving at half the speed of light. The crazy thing about black holes this large though, other than how fast they're moving apparently, is that it is believed that they wouldn't necessarily kill you right away if you were to fall into one. In fact, it's thought that you would actually survive. You just wouldn't be able to escape to tell the tale because of that whole nothing escapes the black hole thing that they all have going on. In our number 1 spot today, we have supermassive black holes. Speaking of black holes, why is there a supermassive black hole at the center of most galaxies? We know that this is often the case, but we just can't quite figure out why. Every galaxy's supermassive black hole ranges in size, and we know that a stellar black hole forms from a supernova when the core of the star implodes, but we don't know how a supermassive black hole is formed. Because of the fact that the center of galaxies is where a lot of matter is boxed in, it could happen that supermassive black holes form from a cluster of regular stellar black holes, which all ended up merging together because they were in a tight confined space at the center of the galaxy. There are other theories as well, such as the possibility of these supermassive black holes being formed during the Big Bang. What I'm trying to get at is, we don't know how these things are formed, or why they are in the center of most galaxies, or even if there were supermassive black holes before the galaxies even existed. Maybe one day we'll find out, but this might just be one of those mysteries that is destined to stay a secret.